Why do some people become obese? As we discussed earlier, there are basically no differences in how you lose weight. So, energy or weight loss is done through energy restriction, as in you're eating less calories per day than you burn. So, why is it that some people are seemingly obese and some people can seemingly eat whatever they want and they really gain no weight? I want to give you a few statistics first, just before we get in. These are from the World Health Organization, just talking about obesity in the world. So obesity rates have tripled since 1975. It's pretty staggering. In 2016, more than 650 million obese and 40%, 650 million people were classified as obese in the world, and 40% of people were considered overweight. That is huge. That is almost one in every two people, or 50% of people. We're almost coming to the point where if you meet two people out in public, one of them are going to be overweight. And overweight doesn't have quite the same concerns as obesity when it comes to heart rate, heart issues, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these different things. But it is a risk factor. Individuals who are overweight, shocker, are actually more at a risk of becoming even more overweight at some point and becoming obese. So that's a huge risk factor. 40% of people are overweight. This next statistic is really staggering and kind of shows the importance of public health, not just for ourselves and adults, but for younger individuals as well. 39 million children under 5 are overweight. 39 million children under 5 are overweight. And as we just discussed, that's a risk factor to become obese. That's a lot. That's a lot of children under 5. And that's really shocking, kind of scary when you think about the fact that individuals who are younger like that, they don't really know what's going on. They don't know that their health is being neglected. And if they have parents and individuals who are taking care of them who don't know it either, they're basically being dealt a cards in a losing game. They can't win. So they're being really set up for failure, which is why I think it's so important to look at all this. So next portion. We're going to talk about the actual how. Why are some people obese and why some people aren't? This, as we mentioned, is from energy balance issues, which is often kind of stemmed to appetite regulation. So some people are able to regulate their appetite or their feelings of being hungry or simply wanting food better than certain individuals. And this can come from 3 different reasons. This is kind of how I conceptualize obesity and weight gain in general: biological issues, psychological issues, and even social issues. So we're going to talk about what each of these things mean in just a second. Excuse me, I got a little bug in my throat, so it's been tough getting through this, but we're working through it. So biological issues that lead to appetite regulation can be stuff like lower leptin levels. Leptin is your satiety hormone that actually helps you keep full. And as we mentioned earlier, different things that help with satiety are protein-rich foods, high fiber foods, those different things. But there are certain individuals who might have lower leptin levels just from simply being born that way, where they can't be as satisfied as easy. Their body doesn't secrete leptin quite as well. Higher ghrelin. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. If you are somebody who is obese or overweight, you might have slightly higher ghrelin hormones, which make you feel hungry more frequently. Also, another biological reasoning to become overweight or obese: some people do just store fat a little bit better, or I shouldn't say better, easier. There are certain subcategories of demographics where certain individuals based off of ethnicity actually store body fat better. So this tells you very is genetic. Also, a huge thing to note: some people, they may store fat easier in different areas. So the people who store the fat in all the right places, if you will, these are the people who might be, genetically gifted in their storing fat. People who store fat instead of around their stomach, maybe they store it around their butt a little bit more, just in areas that aren't normally seen quite as well. Also, let's think about just cavemen biology. So when it comes to obesity and weight gain, our body is playing off of genetics from a long time ago. We're playing off genes from when we were cavemen. And these genes were meant to keep us alive in a time with very little food, very little predictable food, I should say, where you need to actually store a lot of fat to remain alive. And those who did not actually would die out a lot easier. So these genes are something that we've evolved to over time. So although obesity is a huge concern, we're kind of, for the most part, fighting our genes. And that is extremely hard when you try to start fighting biology. So just something to note there. Next thing, psychological issues. Psychological and social issues, these are the next two portions of weight gain and specifically obesity and why some people are obese. This is not talked about very much, but psychological reasons. Low self-esteem, poor body image. This is something that I kind of look at as hopelessness. Somebody might feel like they can't do anything about their obesity or weight gain, so they're just hopeless. They're not going to be able to change anything, and they say, "Oh, it's just genetics." It might be genetics a little bit, but the hopelessness and low self-esteem and poor body image can actually lead to more issues. As we look at the appetite regulation portion of this, would it be easier for somebody who has a higher self-esteem to feel okay eating a certain amount of food? Obviously, right? But if that same person has a cupcake in front of them, they eat it and they're like, "Oh, well, this is just who I am," they're probably just going to go eat more food anyway. That's a huge, huge issue with it. Some people are predisposed to different disorders. As we know with alcoholism, some people might have a gene variant which makes them more susceptible to overconsuming on alcohol and becoming an alcoholic or having alcohol overuse disorder. This is kind of the same thing for individuals who are overeating. There might be hidden compulsions and disordered eating habits that are kind of deep and psychological that can really, really lead to becoming obese, becoming overweight, and having a tough time managing your overall body. Okay, last thing, the social and environment aspect of eating disorders. This is a huge driver, and this is something that I find extremely very fascinating because we can change this a lot. When we're talking about things to do to not become obese, to lose weight, and to maintain our weight the best we can, the social environment, as in how we set up the environment around us, can play seriously one of the biggest roles. Because if you change your environment, it's going to hopefully at some point change your biology and psychology, so it's a never-ending circle. But some of the things when it comes to social environment, where do you work? Do you work at a fast food place? Or do you work at a health food store, right? Obviously, you can imagine if you're in a fast food environment where you're just smelling chicken all day and the people who work there probably don't care about their health quite as much. That's going to cause a huge social issue because you're setting that environment up around unhealthy food, and it's the norm to eat unhealthy food, and it's my break, so I'm going to go have some chicken tenders on food versus a chicken tenders for lunch versus a salad, right? Family and friend pressure. How does your family look? Does your family care about their health? Does your friends, every time you go out with them, do you go out to get coffee and maybe just like a bagel, or do you go out and drink for 4 to 5 hours at a club on the weekends, right? These are going to be very, very different things that you can change. You can change this environment, but the environment is a huge thing, especially family and friends, because A lot of us, again, we talked about biology, we are so ingrained to do things that will keep us alive. Having friends, having family, keeping them happy is something that will ultimately help to keep us alive. Or it did a lot of years ago, and we're still kind of playing off that same biology. So a lot of times, to appease your friends and your family, you might not want to eat that extra piece of cake at your birthday dinner, or you might not want to go out and party and drink a bunch of empty calories with your friends. But if they want you to, or if they make you feel bad about it and almost guilt trip you, guess what? You're going to have a much more difficult time managing your obesity, managing your weight, just because of that simple environment. So the next portion is home setup. So how does your home setup look like when it comes to food? Do you walk into your fridge and there's literally just junk food on the top shelf, or do you have fruits and vegetables visible when you first open it? When you look at your countertops, are there just desserts and cookies and cakes all littered on your countertop, or is there fresh fruit visible for you to see? These are all things that are incredibly easy to change in your overall home, overall basically environment that's going to lead you towards better weight loss goals, better weight management goals. A funny story I should mention, one of the bosses I had at a previous job, they had a professor who was very short, and she couldn't reach the top shelf of her cupboard. So she put all of her cakes, cookies, and snacks up on that top shelf, and also put a step stool at the bottom of her house in her basement. So anytime she needed or wanted to get a snack or a treat or something, she had to be mindful about it, and she actually had to go all the way down the stairs, grab the step stool, come all the way back up, place the step stool, reach up, and then she redid it again. So it just goes to show you how powerful you can get with these different environment tweaks. Think about how easy it would be to diet and lose weight and not overall become obese if you didn't have any junk food in the house. Shocking, right? But if you don't think that far ahead of, oh, this is going to be much harder for me when I bring this bag of chips home, when I bring this box of cookies home, it's just something people don't think of. So it's going to take a little more attention. Work and life environment, we kind of talked about that. You can be in a place where eating healthy, maybe taking walks during your lunch break is a social norm. It's going to be much easier for you to maintain your overall weight and hopefully help you to decrease any overweight symptoms or obesity symptoms. Where you live is a huge thing. Let's think about this. If you're going to work or you're just going out into the world to get groceries, how many fast food places do you drive by? A lot. I know myself personally, I do. A lot. So that's one of the things you're feeling. Also, you go out, how many different gyms do you drive by? Fitness centers do you drive by? Health centers do you drive by? Probably not that many. This is a huge thing when it comes to environment. So if you're in a place where a gym's right next door, a smoothie place is right next door, you can get these healthy options. You're setting your environment up so much better for you to actually maintain your weight and overall decrease the chances of becoming obese. How you cope with stress. Excuse me, that's in the next section, I apologize. Looking up ahead. Hot and cold weather. So this is something I find interesting in hot weather situations. So maybe out in Florida, stuff closer to towards the equator. Tough to pronounce that, I guess. The equator, it's actually less likely for you to overeat on food. People who live in these climates and situations don't eat quite as much when it comes to overall food. Colder weather, you typically do eat a little bit more, just from statistics. Is physical activity a norm? This is a big thing. So let's think about the warm weather examples like Florida and all these different places. If it is normal for you to go out and go for a walk, as in literally everybody's doing it, all your friends are doing it, all your family's doing it, going out to the beach and spending some time throwing frisbee with your family, friends, kids, etc. If that's a normal activity, the chances of you being able to maintain your weight better, being able to eat less is going to be so much easier. As we can see here, all these different environmental things on top of psychological things, on top of biological things, stacked together can really, really persuade somebody to have a difficult time monitoring their energy balance versus somebody who maybe has a very ease of access to healthy food. They have a gym at their home. They basically design their life in a way that makes it so much easier to be physically active. And that's kind of one of the big take-home points I want you to think about is, what is a few ways that I can change my environment to make eating healthier, losing weight, getting into the gym more easier? What are some ways I can change my schedule, change my life to make that easier? To tell me you're no good, I'm brushing away.